The suspension clock is running, and the decree that started it does not say what happens when it stops. Beijing published its own semiconductor export control framework in October 2025, complete with thresholds, jurisdictional claims, and a case-by-case review mechanism that mirrors, almost clause for clause, the architecture Washington spent 3 years assembling. We are going to read that text twice, once for what it records and once for the considerably larger territory it refuses to settle. The silence in the second reading is the story. The decree sets legible technical thresholds. Logic semiconductors fabricated at 14 nanometers and below fall under its controls. Memory at 256 layers and above falls under its controls. The equipment capable of producing either category is covered alongside the chips themselves. These numbers appear in the text, and they are not vague. They correspond, with notable precision, to the tier of product that Western restrictions spent years trying to keep out of China, which means the decree reads, at the technical level, as a response written in the same language as the policy it is answering. The document establishes a licensing and review mechanism. Exports of covered goods require case-by-case approval, a bureaucratic posture that is standard in export control architecture globally, and that gives the issuing government both discretion and a paper trail. The review process is named. Its timelines are not. The decree records the mechanism and does not describe how long a case, in practice, takes to resolve. The extraterritorial claim is where the decree moves beyond a domestic instrument. It asserts jurisdiction over goods that carry Chinese origin content above a stated threshold, approximately 50% by value, by the reading available at publication. That clause means the rule, as written, does not stop at the Chinese border. A product assembled elsewhere, incorporating Chinese components above that threshold, falls within the decree's stated scope, regardless of where it was manufactured or where it is destined. The reach is in the text. Whether it has ever been exercised is a different matter, and the text does not address it. Think of it the way a landlord might write a lease covering not only the apartment, but any furniture built using materials sourced from that building, regardless of where the furniture now sits. The clause is in the agreement. Whether the landlord has ever walked into a furniture factory to audit the lumber is a separate question, and the lease does not answer it. And then the decree records a suspension. These measures, though published and legally in force, are held in abeyance until approximately November 2026. The text establishes the rule and then defers its full operation. Both facts are present in the document. The rule exists. Its active enforcement does not begin at publication. Reading it again, the suspension is the first thing the text declines to explain. A suspension can mean a government is buying time for its own industry to adjust to the new compliance landscape. It can mean the enforcement apparatus is not yet ready to process the volume of cases the rules would generate. It can mean the rule was designed to be seen rather than used, a demonstration of legal parity rather than an operational instrument with a launch date. The decree does not choose among these interpretations. It records the delay and is silent on the reasoning behind it, which leaves the suspension open to readings that are, in practical terms, opposites. The content threshold jurisdiction claim appears in the decree without an accompanying enforcement mechanism. The document does not describe how origin will be audited across a multi-vendor supply chain, who bears the burden of demonstrating compliance, or what remediation looks like when a product's Chinese content share is contested. The jurisdictional claim is in the text. The machinery for exercising it is not disclosed at that granularity. A rule that cannot describe its own audit process has stated a boundary without demonstrating it can locate the boundary in practice. The decree names its current threshold products and does not name the products a future iteration of the controlled goods list will add. Export control frameworks are not static documents. They are amended by administrative action, often on short notice, and the October 2025 text establishes the architecture for that amendment process without disclosing its intended direction. The list that exists is in the record. The list that comes next is absent from it, which means the full scope of the regime is, by design or by incompleteness, not visible in the founding document. The decisive silence sits at the level of the suspension itself. The text records, with precision, what China is prepared to restrict. It does not record whether that restriction represents a ceiling or a floor. A ceiling would mean the decree captures the outer limit of what Beijing intends to control, and the November 2026 lapse brings the existing list into active force without material expansion. A floor would mean the lapse is the beginning of a more active posture, and the current thresholds are the entry point rather than the end point. The document is compatible with either reading. It offers no language that would allow a careful reader to distinguish between them, and the absence of that language is not an oversight that a closer reading can repair. The record does not settle how November 2026 will actually land, whether the suspension lapses into active enforcement, into a further extension, or into a renegotiated framework that looks different from the October 2025 text. The decree does not disclose the administrative capacity behind the licensing review, so the thresholds in the text cannot tell you whether the case-by-case process will move in days or in months. The document does not show the domestic Chinese semiconductor landscape as it will exist at the moment the suspension lifts. The gap between the capabilities those thresholds imply and the capabilities China's own fabrication facilities can currently produce at scale is not resolved by anything in this text. Independent production data exists, but it is not part of this record. An analyst estimates on that point very widely enough that any single figure would misrepresent the uncertainty. A document can establish a jurisdiction claim without establishing the capacity to exercise it. The decree records the former and is quiet on the latter, and that quiet is where the interpretive risk lives. What the October 2025 decree establishes, read against what it withholds, is this: Beijing has demonstrated that it can write the architecture of an export control regime, the thresholds, the licensing structure, the extraterritorial reach, with the same legal fluency that Washington brought to its own restrictions. What the decree does not establish is whether that architecture will be occupied. The suspension is in the text. The intention behind it is not. The record shows a country that has learned the grammar of economic statecraft. It does not show the sentence that grammar is being used to write. The pen is in the document. What gets written with it remains, for now, outside the record. When the November 2026 suspension window arrives, the document to read closely will not be the announcement. It will be the amended controlled goods list, and specifically, what it adds and what it quietly leaves off. What product category do you think appears on that list first? If that kind of close reading is how you want to follow this, subscribe and turn on notifications. We will be here when the next document drops.